Welcome, everyone. I get this question a lot. What the hell is Bitcoin? So I'm about to answer it in as quick as a way possible. I know there's so many videos on this, but I wanted to personalize it because I actually put some links at the bottom of my emails all the time, and people go, that still doesn't answer it for me. So I'm going to make it as simple as possible. What the hell is Bitcoin? That's very similar to saying, what the hell is the internet back in 1995? Very, very similar, and you probably don't understand why it's so similar, but that's okay for now. Immediately, let's just look at Bitcoin itself. It's really none of these things. In essence, it is just a virtual currency that is stored in a public accessible database. So when people think Bitcoin's anonymous, it certainly isn't. It's not. And that's probably how they caught the guys at Silk Road, was because of Bitcoin. But if you think about it, if they say that Bitcoin's that easy to catch people with, then no one's going to start using Bitcoin illegally for illegal purposes, and they'll do something else. But anyway, Bitcoin's certainly not anonymous in the way that we think of anonymous, but it is certainly not a coin either. It is closer to these zeros and ones. If you look at the word bit, it just means a 1 or a 0. And coin just refers to the fact that it acts like money. There's a couple of things that you're probably going to run into when you hear Bitcoin, and that is Satoshi Nakamoto. I believe this is a group of people, if I could spell the word group. This is a group of people that have invented Bitcoin, and they really don't want to be known as to who they are specifically. There is a Bitcoin developers group, so they are constantly adjusting and changing and making the program of Bitcoin, the Bitcoin protocol. They're adjusting it and improving it and getting rid of bugs and all that sort of stuff. So it's not really out there on its own. I'm thinking that the group of people that are working on the Bitcoin protocol could be one and the same, but there's no proof to that. There was a guy, Craig somebody, in Sydney that said he was Satoshi, and then he couldn't prove it, but that's really just another ploy to sort of give more misinformation. That's kind of how the government works, is misinformation. So I figure they did their own smart misinformation on that. So there is a Bitcoin group of developers that are working on it. So it's not really on its own at all, but they have to have something called consensus. Did I spell that right? They need to agree upon in many different areas as to whether they change the protocol or not. Another question is, how come there's only 21 million of them, of these Bitcoins? Well, just like our own current monetary system, which is called fiat money, most fiats, or most regular monies, are divisible. And so if you say there's only $1,000 in the universe, and so that means there's only 1,000 pieces of paper that we can use, well, that's not quite right, because we actually have something called cents. Well, Bitcoin also has, in terms of cents, the same kind of thing. So it can go to 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it can go to 8 decimal places and still be a partial Bitcoin. So you can buy and sell partial Bitcoins. You don't have to buy and sell whole Bitcoins. So if we look at the price of Bitcoin, where is my price of Bitcoin? Currently it's $681 US for every single Bitcoin, but of course you can divide that by 10, by 1,000, by 10,000, by 1,000,000. So yeah, you've got lots of units that are available to move the Bitcoin around the world, and it is moving around the world. I have to admit, it's moving quite rapidly around the world, and it's moving in increasing numbers. So here's the Blockchain Explorer. This is a really good site if you want to learn about the ins and outs of Bitcoin. There's a lot of charts and stats and things. One of the stats that is very interesting is the transactions. I'm trying to look for the transactional chart. There must be a transactional chart somewhere. Bitcoin's in circulation. This has been organized to be consistent, and obviously it has been. The market price, you know, it's it is volatile, but I'm a currency trader, and here's a typical chart of the U.S. versus the Swiss. That's pretty volatile. So if you want to say that a Bitcoin as a currency is volatile, go right ahead. But they all are in their own way volatile in their own degrees. So that argument that it's too volatile is kind of a joke. If you want to look at the pound in the last last week, they just did something called Brexit, and this is like a cliff face for currency traders. So currencies in general sort of have this potential cliff face once in a while. No one knows it's going to happen, of course, and if they try and predict what's going to happen, they usually get it wrong. So Bitcoin's certainly no different. Transactions per block. Now this is interesting because it is increasing in transactions since they started recording the transactions on this chart. So the number of transactions are increasing steadily. It's kind of plateauing a little bit, but that doesn't mean to say that it's going to turn down. It's just that it's right now we're in a halving situation. It's July of 2016, so we're going through the halving thing, and that's something I'll explain later. But for now, fiat money or regular money, which is not backed by gold, as some people actually think. I'm sorry to say, your money that you're holding in your hand in your wallet and in your bank is not backed by gold. If you want to think about Bitcoin in terms of what is it, it's virtual. So it's kind of like the money that's in your credit card. You look at your credit card, you cannot see the money that's in that credit card by looking at the credit card. Bitcoin has the disadvantage of not actually having a credit card. It's just sort of a wallet on your phone or on your computer. So Bitcoin is solely internet only. So if the internet ever goes down, then you're essentially not able to transact in Bitcoin. And you're probably not likely to be able to transact money, banking, or credit cards anyways. So you're in a worse situation. But you know, this really gets down to the concept of what is money. And money is anything that you can exchange for goods and services. And some people trade food, some people trade in barter situations, they'll trade a car for services. So money's got a really iffy, vague definition as well. And unfortunately, we have a lot of emotions associated with money. So when people test their emotions on certain strongly held beliefs, it comes and hits them in the head with a lot of negative reactions. So Bitcoin is getting a lot of negative reactions. But imagine what happened back in the day when credit cards were started. That was back in the 1950s, and people are like, "What is this plastic thing? This isn't money. I know what money looks like. It's paper." And people paid a lot of things with their paper money back before the 1950s. And before that, they used something called gold coins and gold nuggets and gold bits, if you would believe it was called gold bits. So the transition from gold to paper took 400 years, 350 to 400 years to get people used to paper from gold coins and you know, silver coins and copper coins. It took a long time for them to even agree that paper was a good idea. Credit cards didn't take so long. Credit cards took about 20 years, from what I can gather through the sources. So getting to Bitcoin, and it's only since 2009 that Bitcoin's been around. So if it takes 10 years to get to the concept of Bitcoin, then that's really not a surprise in today's internet-based community. To me, it's taking longer than it should, but I think because it's so freaking complicated. And what complicates things is when they talk about mining. You know, what the hell is mining? And you have to ask yourself, I don't know what the hell mining is. It's when you dig in the ground. Well, this is Bitcoin mining. And these are specific computers. And this one is a great example. Specific little boards that are attached. And there are thousands of them in this room. And they are actually making a computation that was created by this Satoshi Nakamoto that said, if you have strong computing power and you can break a code, you will win Bitcoins. But in order to do that, you're also going to have to handle the transactions that happened in that 10-minute time frame. And each one of those 10-minute time frames, it's not always 10 minutes fully, and it's called a block. So within that fighting to get the computing of a particular difficulty, it's like a formula that has to be broken. That's the best way to describe it without getting too in depth. You're also given 50 Bitcoins. And over time, every couple of years, it's gone to 25 Bitcoins. And right now, it's July 2016, and we're about to go to 12.5 Bitcoins per block. So the number of Bitcoins in circulation will technically be decreasing. So essentially, it has something that isn't inflation. So this is a non-inflationary currency. And I got to say, the developers that made this really spent an enormous amount of time working out many of the problems that are associated with money on the internet. Credit cards are really not that secure. There's a lot of plain text information that is floating around on the internet for credit cards, and also bank transfers. So the current banking system is not really designed properly to be handled on the internet. So you're just getting an evolution of what is a really good system that's able to handle monetary transactions on the internet? And the answer is Bitcoin or something like it. The current banking system has a lot of flaws, and people have seen it. There's something called the double spending, which cannot happen with Bitcoin. They've made a lot of advances into not allowing me to send you 2 Bitcoin and my neighbor 2 Bitcoin and some guy across the world 2 Bitcoin, and it'd be the same Bitcoin. They've really gone a long, in-depth way using cryptography to make sure that double spending doesn't happen. And also securing the transactions and putting them onto this thing called a block. And of course, when you get multiple blocks, it's called a blockchain. So that's probably another word you're going, oh, what the hell's a blockchain? Well, it's just a bunch of transactions that are stored in what they call a block of data. So really, the blockchain is just a database full of transactions. So there you go. And since Bitcoin's not anonymous, they can track who owns what. And when I mean who, it's really what wallet. And what's a wallet? You know, I'm bringing up all these things. It's very similar to a banking app on your phone. It knows how many Bitcoins you've got, and it knows if you want to send it to somebody else. That's really the easiest way to look at it. It's like Apple Pay, but way more secure. And you're probably thinking, okay, why doesn't everybody take Bitcoin? Well, that's a really good question. Not a lot of people need Bitcoin. It's not a needed item, but the security and the transaction of information and the transaction of value has been needed for a long time, and I think it's been a long time coming. So banks are already using something called the blockchain protocol. And the great thing about Bitcoin is that it is open source. So the banks are copying this Bitcoin open source program, and they're using it for their own benefit and the benefit of everyone else. So the banks will be using blockchain technology or the blockchain protocol, which is all based on this Bitcoin protocol. So there are quickly things that you might want to know. Bitcoin is the currency, but Capital Bitcoin is the protocol. Please Google any of this information that you want to know about. That's a real overview, a very quick overview of kind of the world of Bitcoin. I know it's not in any way, shape, or form complete, but that's probably why Bitcoin is having such a problem understanding, and it's trying to get information on it. So please Google what the hell is Bitcoin. That usually helps. There's a lot of great YouTube videos explaining what Bitcoin is. You might want to just go to YouTube and just look at what the hell is Bitcoin, explained simple. That's a pretty good one. What is Bitcoin? So just watch a couple of these. They're only, what, 5-10 minutes a piece, and it will give you a little bigger idea of what's going on. But I hope that's a real simple, quick explanation. I tried to do it in less than half an hour, and it's only been about 15 minutes. So there you go. That's Bitcoin in a nutshell, and unfortunately the nutshell's really, really, really big. So have a wonderful day, and stop worrying about Bitcoin. It's not going to take over your life, but the underlying technology will probably affect you, and you may not even know it. It's going to affect how you bank. But you probably, if you're going to send $100 to grandma in Great Britain, they could actually use Bitcoin, and you'll never know it. So it will benefit a lot of different industries, not just banking. But that's another video for another day. Have a good one.